Welcome to Janry Pet Resort, where pet luxury has never been more affordable. So I'm sitting here with Dave, who is our media guy.
I'm really looking forward to this podcast.
I think we should talk about Janry Pet Resort. And let's talk about the beginning.
I think I was 11. I'm 53 now.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
I know. I was 2 when Janry Pet Resort came to Stewartsville.
Stewartsville is an old town.
Yes, it is.
So what was it like in 1982?
I know, right?
You're from around here.
I am from around here. I grew up in Harmony.
Yeah.
And I remember always seeing the sign for Janry Pet Resort when I got old enough.
It's the same sign.
It's the exact same sign. It did say at the time Janry Kennels.
Let's go right back to the beginning.
Okay.
Don't you think people wonder, how did they come up with the name Janry?
Well, it's unique. It's
It
different.
is.
Jane's from Maine.
Maine, okay.
Yep. And Jane was married to Henry. Jane and Henry. Janry. When I realized that that's where it came from, I was like, that was pretty smart. So their first place they had in the area was actually up in Tranquility in Sussex County. They were only there for a couple years, and they were looking for a place. And in 82, they found this place. This was a boarding facility prior to Henry and Jane purchasing it. The customers were show people, so they showed dogs. So it was kind of self-service here. So if you think of like a horse farm where people board their horses there and they go there and they take care of their horses during the day, the people did the same thing with their dogs. And they would come in and they would put their dogs away in whatever specific spot it was. Jane actually tells a funny story where when they purchased the place, she saw someone walking down the sidewalk and she goes down and there was a sign on the door and it said, "Ring the bell if you need change." So she rings the bell and this guy named Johnny picks up. Well, he comes through the back of Janry where there were no houses. He just like walks through the woods. And she looks at him and she goes, "I actually don't need change. I'm the new owner. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on." And he's the one who kind of explained to her that it was a self-service and he was here and he would give the people change if they needed change when they picked up their dogs.
That's unbelievable.
I know,
That's
right?
incredible.
Jane's a professional groomer. So up in Maine, she was grooming dogs. And Henry is a professional dog handler and breeder of German Shepherds. So the dogs he handled were all working class dogs. And so he would travel around the country and Jane would go with him. And they would have their own German Shepherds that they were showing. But then he would handle for other people who had show dogs. He would take them into the ring and along the circuit and show the dogs for them. And then Jane would groom dogs. So she could groom dogs on the road, but then she also had a grooming shop here where when they weren't on the road, she would have people come to Janry and groom the dogs for them here. And they started boarding right away.
That's like before Michael Jackson's Thriller album.
Exactly.
Before 1984's Van Halen.
Right.
That's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. So they were boarding dogs here. They were on the show circuit.
So who was watching over Janry when they were on the road?
They had employees that would stay here. They had some that actually lived in the house. You know, they'd have family friends. They'd have people who knew them from the show circuit. They'd have family that would stay, and they were responsible for the dogs that were staying here. And then it got to the point where life on the road was, a little bit more difficult. Sure. You know, when you're doing it for a long time, then you're starting to say, okay, well, what's the next step? I don't know how many of our viewers have been on the nature trail, and if you haven't been on the nature trail, call us, schedule a tour, because you have to see the nature trail.
It is absolutely beautiful.
There are really good videos.
Hundreds.
So if you've ever been on the nature trail, you'll know that there's a lot of walkways on the nature trail. Well, in the beginning, there was one big loop on the nature trail, and they actually used that loop to run their dogs on to keep them in muscle. So fast forward quite a few years. Unfortunately, the Janry family lost Henry. Not only did the Janry family lose Henry, but the whole show world lost Henry. It was a very tough time, I think, for everyone because he was a bigger than big personality. Fast forward a few years and Jane met Anthony. He's a restaurateur. He has a business mind. He's had many restaurants over the years, and he currently had a restaurant when Jane and Anthony met. And things started to change. The nature trail started to expand. It became more of what it is now. For anybody who's been out there, you know that there are big lights out there, and those are all city street lights from New York City. All of that started to change, and it really became the manicured nature trail that it is now. Now, the nature trail is ever changing. If you saw the nature trail 2 years ago, it probably looks different now because it's constantly changing all the time. We're putting new features in, we're moving features around, everything's constantly changing.
So what people don't know is that they didn't offer doggy daycare back then.
No, doggy daycare back then was definitely not something that many people offered. You have to think, even back in the 90s, a lot of people didn't board their dogs when they went on vacation. They had someone come to the house, and they didn't take their dogs for doggy daycare. We had a different mentality of dogs.
Yeah, we just started bringing dogs into our home in the 20th century.
Exactly. And there's a lot of countries out there that don't even bring dogs in their home yet. Not only do we bring dogs into our home now, but dogs are family members. We all know the numbers where there's people who are waiting to have kids because they have their dogs, and their dogs are their kids.
They're kids with fur.
They're kids with fur. And so we were able to introduce doggy daycare in 2011, but in 2010, we did a complete remodel of the facility. We completely remodeled the inside. We changed where the lobby is. If anybody knows where the lobby used to be, it used to be at the opposite end of the building, and it was a very small lobby. So when they redid the facility, they were actually going to take what is currently the groom shop in the lobby, and that was going to be an indoor play area. But Jane was standing there, and she's looking around as they're adding this addition on, and she's thinking to herself, I don't know if I want to do that. I think I want to use this for grooming and make the lobby into the lobby it is now in the groom shop. So everything's kind of under one roof. And it worked out perfectly. It was tough when they were doing it because they didn't close down when they did the remodel. They still had dogs here. They were still taking care of dogs.
So dedicated.
Very dedicated. We don't close Janry.
That's something people need to know. This place is in action 365 days a year.
It's been in action 365 days a year since 1982.
Unbelievable.
Not one day.
Not one day.
Has there not been a dog here to take care of. The whole facility was redone in 2010. Then in 2011, they introduced daycare because now people are wanting daycare for their dogs because they're going to work and they don't want to leave their dog at home. Whether they have to crate their dog because it's younger, which there's nothing wrong with, or they're just not going to be home. They want to take their dog somewhere to play.
So how did the public respond to that at first?
It was slow. We had a few, but it takes time, obviously. So staff would bring their dogs to work so that the staff's dogs could play with the dogs that came for doggy daycare. Because if you think about it, prior to that, we weren't even doing group play. Group play didn't really start until doggy daycare started. So it was all individual play. Now we're introducing group play. Doggy daycare has just blown up since then. I started in 2012, January of 2012. A little side story. Obviously, I knew Janry Pet Resort bred German Shepherds, but even up until then, I didn't realize they were boarding dogs. And I saw the ad for looking for help, and I was like, they board dogs there? And I drove in the driveway, and you can't see Janry from the road, from 173.
Right, because it's on a
hill.
Right,
yeah,
right,
so you don't realize what's back here. And I drove in the driveway, and I'm like, this has been here for as long as I can remember, and I never knew this is what it was.
And you're from here.
And I'm from here. Exactly. I was blown away when I came for that interview. And then, small world, where I grew up in Harmony, our next door neighbors actually worked here before Jane and Henry purchased the property. She worked for the other gentleman that owned it that did the self-service. And her husband, once Jane and Henry bought the place, through the transition, he mowed the grass. They met here and they got married and they're still together, and they met at Janry Pet Resort, and they were my next door neighbors growing up from the time I was 5 years old.
Connect the dots.
Right, exactly.
So we got to get Jane in here.
Yes, we do.
That's the goal. And you know what? If you're listening to this podcast and you want to hear from Jane, just say something in the comments.
Please.
Because I'm sure she would love to see that.
Exactly. We want Jane to come on and say hi to all of our customers.
Yeah, and get the meat and potatoes from her.
Exactly. I mean, she's been here since before the beginning. I've been here since 2012, so I've been here 12 years. January of 2012, like 12 and a half years I've been here. You know who's been here? And I didn't even realize it was this long? Leanne. I actually asked her the other day, when did she start at Janry? She said 1997 or 1998. The great thing about Leanne, she didn't start here as a groomer. Everything that Leanne does, she learned from Jane and then just honed her skills.
She's an amazing groomer.
An amazing groomer.
And you know what? If you have had your dog groomed by Leanne,
you know it. And
yeah, you know it. And you should write something in the comments below.
Yeah, so we can show Leanne because she would love to see how much everybody loves
and she's
her.
an amazing person. And she's an incredible groomer.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
People come far and wide, just like people do for barbers.
Oh yeah.
People drive far and wide.
We have customers that come from over an hour away for Leanne to groom their dog. So, I mean, Janry Pet Resort has been here for the long haul. And we're going to be here for the long haul. There's going to be little changes here and there, and they're only going to make us better.
So what makes Janry so fabulous now?
You know what? Janry is so fabulous because the staff love their dogs. The staff love your dogs. That's why Janry is so fabulous. I've been through a few dogs' lives with the same customer, and I remember back to their first dog that I met, and then to see them, you know, go through the grieving process of losing that dog, because our staff grieve. We've known these dogs. And
yeah, the staff get very attached to the customers' dogs.
Very attached.
And you know what? That's, I believe, just having been here a little bit of time myself now, almost 7.5 years, I wouldn't bring my dogs anywhere else. When you're leaving your children with fur, you want to be able to have a good time and relax and not have to worry.
Right.
And so this place really breathes security. I get this feeling. People are so confident when they come in and they leave and they know that their dogs are okay. They know their dogs are going to be well looked after.
Exactly. And that's what we want. We want people to be able to go on vacation, have a great time, come home, and have the same dog that they pick up, that they dropped off. A happy dog.
And just having witnessed it myself, dogs love coming here. They know they're coming to Janry, and they drag their owners into the place, which is such a good sign.
It's such a good sign, and we love seeing that. And there's been times where staff have had to walk dogs out of the facility with the owner. All right, I'll come with you. Unfortunately, they have to do kind of like a bait and switch and not get in the car with them.
Yeah, well, that's easy to do.
Exactly. But, you know, they'll walk out the door with the dogs.
If you're listening to this podcast and you have something that you would like us to talk about, just write it in the comments below.
Let us know.
We are open-minded.
Very, very open-minded.
But if you're a customer of Janry Pet Resort, you already know that.
So true. So true.
Let's talk about the loyalty of Jane, Helen Hopkins.
Helen Hopkins.
Yep.
She started with Jane, I believe, right when they came here in 82, 83. Helen left her dogs to Jane in her will.
Yeah, and they are with us right now.
They're with us now. And that tells you how special the bond is, not only between staff and the dogs, but every person that walks through this door, when we see them, they become part of Janry. And we want to know their highs. We want to know their lows. We want to be there for them because we're going to be there for their dogs. And anytime a person has a high, the dog's going to have a high. And every time the person has a low, that dog might have a low. So we need to make sure that we know what's going on, and we want to be part of their family as well.
There is just so much to talk about here.
Yes, there is. There is so much to talk about. We could talk and talk and talk.
And we're going to.
And we're going to because
Well, actually, you're going to.
well, you're going to help.
I am.
We hope that everyone who is listening right now is enjoyed this. We hope that you're going to stick around and come back. Shout out to
Janry.
Shout out to Janry.
Tell us your experience.
Exactly. And
we want to know.
We do want to know. And if you have ideas for the podcast, please shout them out as well, because we want to be here to help you traverse life with your dog in any way that we can.
We want customers to be our producers. What do you want to hear? Just write them in the comments below.
Yeah.
Just like you have been.